Guys, I think the fall, early fall like this, especially when it's stayed really hot uh, at the beginning of archery season, is a really good time to just refresh our thoughts around taking care of meat in the field. And I'm super passionate about it, guys. Sometimes we can all make a mistake or we can all have something happen. It costs us, a problem or something, but most of the time, these things are preventable with some planning and proper thought processes. So, just wanted to share some of that. After 4 decades of doing this, I've come across so many things with people with meat, doing it right, doing it terrible. I've learned a lot, and I just kind of want to share those things and just have a dialogue around it. It's a big deal. In the end, guys, it's a huge responsibility when you pull that trigger or release that arrow. You have to be organized and have a plan to respect that animal, take care of that meat, bring that meat to your table in great condition. It's incumbent upon you to do that. And that's the thing. Before I jump into this list on the board behind me, it drives me nuts when I see people that hunt, but it's not for the meat. Okay. Hunting should be a combination of things, right? It's for the adventure, it's for the fun, it's for the challenge. But in the end, an animal's on the ground and that meat becomes the number one focus. And there's just so much stuff you see on the internet and all these things where that's not the case. And that's not the case. And we'll leave it at that. All right. So I'm going to go through a couple lists up here. Let's start, guys, with yes, the stuff you want to do. Okay. And we'll just talk about each of these briefly. Know your limits. Okay. Physically, what can you handle? How much meat can you pack? How far can you pack it? How quickly can you pack it? How far should you be? What's the farthest you should be from your vehicle that you could get meat out efficiently? Know your limits, be honest with yourself. What kind of help will you have? All those different things, right? Me, at my age now, in these warm conditions, and look, these warm conditions can persist well into the fall, and that's maybe a topic for another time. Last year, late October, we had 50 degrees for lows at 7,500 feet. Okay. So you've got to know your limits and be honest with yourself. Second, have a plan. Okay. If I get an animal down, what's my plan? Where am I going to hang it? How am I going to get it out? Who am I going to call? What's my gear? How quickly can I get back to town? Do I have ice? Do I have coolers? It's overlapping a little bit with have the gear, but just think this through before you go on your hunt, guys. Have a plan, okay? And it needs to be integral to your hunt planning, the meat care, and how you're going to take care of things. Have the gear, okay, with you and at camp. So with you, obviously, knife. If your method uses a saw, you want a saw, game bags, pieces of rope so you can hang things, a pack that can pack meat, you know, whatever it is that you use to take care of the animal, whatever method you use, you've got to just really verify that stuff's in your pack. Sharp knives, right? If you need to carry 3 knives, because nothing will screw this up more than if your knife dulls and you're trying to fight through an elk with a dull knife. You're screwed. It's just a nightmare. Have everything you need in your pack to take care of that animal. And you've got to take care of yourself, guys. It's hard work to break an animal down. You need food, you need snacks, you need water, Gatorades, whatever. You've got to be organized. It's part of having a plan, right? Now at camp, right? Or maybe it's in your truck, depending on how you're hunting, coolers and ice, okay? We'll talk a little bit more about some of the risks of putting meat in coolers. I think we'll get to that here on one of these lists. But, I guess I could go through my pack and show what gear I carry for meat care, but it really comes down to having that in there, knowing how to use it, and tying it into your plan. Know the weather. Okay, you got to know what the weather conditions are going to be during your hunt. Is it going to be warm? Is it going to be warm at night? What are those conditions going to be as you're planning your hunt? Should you even go hunting, right? If it's going to be 90 in the day and the lows are 60s, you better have quite a plan. You better really know your limits for getting that meat out. If you kill an elk 3 or 4 miles from your truck in those kind of temperatures I just described, unless you have a bunch of people and you can get that meat out right now in one trip, leaving it hang overnight at 60 degrees, it's gone. Well, let me ask you this. Would you go down to the store and buy $300 of New York cuts, throw them in a game bag, come home and just hang them in a tree in your backyard where the low that night's going to be 65, 55 even, 50? No, you wouldn't, because it's going to spoil that night. We talked about this last one, respect for the animal, respect for the creator. Hey, this is a privilege to harvest this animal, to take this life, to bring it to the table for you and your family, your friends. That type of respect in your mindset just ties all this together, guys. It just is part of a huge responsibility you have when you pull that trigger or you send that arrow, okay? Let's look at the no, things you don't want to do, okay? Come back in the morning. Oh boy. Guys, if you're willing to pull that trigger or send that arrow at last light, right before dark, you need to be willing to spend all night in the woods to recover and take care of that animal. This business about shooting something at dark and then, oh, we'll let it lay, it'll be fine, we'll come back in the morning. No, it's ridiculous. 100% of the time, the meat that lays against the ground will be spoiled, okay? And almost 100% of the time, all the meat will be spoiled, okay? I have more stories about witnessing this than you can shake a stick at. That meat does not take long. When it's not open to the air with air circulation, what's insulated against the ground, even if the ground is cold, guys, even if there's snow, the snow actually adds more insulation. You're going to lose that meat. This business about leaving it lay, if you watch the videos on YouTube where hunters do that, they get there the next morning, and usually they're not even there at the crack of dawn. The sun's all the way up and all this, and they grab that animal and it's full rigor mortis, right? Stiffer than a board. The meat's ruined, okay? So if you're going to hunt all the way till dark, which is fine, have all the gear with you, flashlights and all that, to stay out, track the animal, recover it, and take care of it in the middle of the night. I've done it, right? I've been packing meat at 2, 3 in the morning, okay? I don't do that anymore because I know my limits. That was when I was much younger. Now, guys, I don't hunt past about early afternoon because I'm not going to do that in the dark anymore at my age. It's too risky. So I have a strong base of knowledge about all this business about laying it on the ground all night. It's a hoax. It's not. It's going to be ruined. Okay. It'll be okay in the shade. No, it won't. Guys, you do want to hang your meat in the shade while you're in the process of cutting it up and making trips. But if it's 65 degrees, 70 degrees, and at night if it's 50s, really doesn't matter where it's hanging, okay? Those temperatures are just too much for meat. Again, you wouldn't do that at your house. So I know guys who said, early season hunts, highs are 70s, 80s, lows are still upper 50s. We killed a bull, and I'm like, oh, where's the meat? Oh, we hung it in the shade, and it's 6 miles in there, and so it's going to take us a couple days. And I'm like, yeah, it's ruined. The shade is not cold enough under those conditions to keep the meat good. Your only hope would be a creek bottom that's completely shaded where there's always a cool breeze, but in those temperatures, that's even a low chance of success. Dirt on the meat, dragging the meat, all this business. Let's talk about that for a minute. I've been good friends with a few meat processors, butchers, whatever you want to call them. And it's just disheartening to hear the stories they tell about the kind of meat that's brought into their shops. A high percentage of the game that's brought in is it looks like it's been through a war zone, right? It's covered in dirt and rocks and leaves and grass. They end up having to throw, if it's not spoiled, by the time they trim it and clean it up, they've got to throw a significant percentage of it away. Okay. They've told stories about, a guy will come in and he talks about, oh, I hooked it to my four-wheeler and we drug it 6 miles down this old road to the truck or to camp. And it literally is like half missing from being drugged like that. I can't imagine. It just blows my mind that we have that going on. But you need to have, back to the do's, the yes. You need to have things with you to keep the meat clean. You need to understand how to take the meat off, set it somewhere clean, have the bags, be organized. There's all kinds of techniques, right? On the gutless technique that I use, you're peeling the hide off and it's laying there, and you can set meat on that hide, and it's just a perfect place to set it. It's clean, and while you're still working on it, or if you're going to bone it out or whatever. You've got to keep it clean, guys, to the best of your ability. Now, look, let's be realistic, right? A little piece of grass gets on it, a pine needle, a couple rocks or whatever, pieces of bark. Hey, we're not talking perfection, but I mean, there's a difference between doing your best and just not caring, right? This is a big one, guys. I would say, this is just something I want to share that I've seen happen. And maybe you have too, but if you haven't, I just want to make people aware of this. So let's say you kill an elk in the early season while it's warm, and let's say it's 100 yards from camp. And I chuckle because my hunting soulmate and I did that. We got up one morning, camp. We have minimal camps. We don't have fires. We don't cook. So there's no scent other than naturally our body and our gear put off scent, but it's very minimalistic. Got up, got our gear on, and we were 100 yards from camp. It was breaking light. Cut a long story short, called in a bull. My buddy hit him. He ran towards camp, died like 80 yards from our camp. Okay, so it can happen. It's awesome. It was a blessing. It was just such an amazing morning. But at that point, right, it's super easy to get that meat taken care of. And at camp, we had coolers and ice. Well, we knew we were already experienced hunters. We knew though, the last thing you want to do is if you leave the bone in and you throw it in the cooler, that ice, it doesn't cool it quick enough. And there's so much heat that's still held against that bone that you'll get bone sour. It'll sour the meat right near the bone. So in this condition, we just bone it out, lay the meat out, let it cool from the inside out. Just open it up and let it cool. I've seen a lot of guys think they're doing the right thing. They've got a fresh kill. It's still warm. They haven't boned it. And I get that. There's times where I don't bone it either if the weather's cold. But you can think you're doing the right thing, throwing it in a cooler with ice. But that ice almost kind of insulates the whole thing again. And there's that heat held in the middle. Butchers talk about it. Butchers will talk about how they've had meat brought to them and it bone soured because the middle just didn't cool. Okay. So look, guys, these are just a few things to share, especially early season like this. But look, I want to talk about that late October last year. Late October, we were having highs in the 60s and the nighttime lows were staying really warm. We were hunting at 7,500 feet and we were 50 at night. And we killed 2 cow elk in those conditions, okay? And it was very difficult to take care of that meat and deal with those temperatures, especially 2 elk and having to get those out, okay? We had a plan, we knew our limits, we got help, and we were able to do a good job, but it pushed us because there was no time, we didn't have any flexibility. The flip side is, right, killing elk in November, 13 degrees out, or whatever, you cut that elk apart and it just cools. But I've had it before where within an hour of taking that elk apart and boning it and everything's laying out, the meat's like, it's done, it's cooled, it's done. Hang it in the tree, and when you get back the next day to pack another load, the whole meat is just frozen stiff, right? So, we have those extremes, guys, but just wanted to kind of share this, just get guys thinking, get guys talking. For me personally, where I live right now with the kind of heat we're having, I just won't hunt, okay? For me, I know my limits. I know it's too risky, okay? If I had 4 or 5 guys hunting with me and we were going to be pretty close and we could get that meat out quickly, that maybe changed my plans. But that's what I'm asking guys, is that know your limits, have a plan.